Good evening, Kyria Network. Welcome to this very hot and very sticky leadership focus evening. If you're just tuning in right now, we just want to say a big welcome to you. You're watching a Kyria Focus. I've got a little bit of feedback, beg your pardon. You're watching a Kyria Focus. A Kyria Focus is a monthly meeting that we've been putting on as Kyria Network. Kyria Network is a network to champion, empower and release women into spheres of influence. And when we've been doing these leadership focuses, we've been taking a different sphere of influence and we've been looking at what that means in that leadership sphere and also how we as women can better ourselves, upskill, learn more about that particular leadership sphere. So we've looked at the charitable sphere, for example, we've looked at leading as a creative, we've looked at leading with a disability, we've looked at leading in church, lots of different focuses. And tonight I'm joined by Oge, Ruth, Victoria and my co-host Angie, and we're going to be talking for 30 minutes about this subject of leading in the business sphere. So if you're watching this evening, firstly, a real welcome from us. We hope you enjoy this conversation. If you're catching up this later, we really hope this is a blessing and an inspiration for you. But just to say, as we conclude this live at 8:30, there is an opportunity for you to join us in a closed confidential Zoom room. It's only going to be for 15 minutes, as we know you'll probably want to go and cool off or have a shower, etc. But you may have a particular question for Oge, you may have a particular question for Ruth or Victoria about some of the impacts that they've brought this evening. So if you wanted to join that Zoom room, just keep a little eye out right now where you can actually see what some of the details will be in the chat. I'm going to be sharing that Zoom link in just a while. So yeah, Angie and I are really delighted, Oge, Ruth and Victoria, that you could join us this evening on this live. Thank you so much. I just wonder if we could start with a word of introduction, if every one of you would be prepared just to share who you are, what your leadership context is. But it would be great to know, why does business leading actually matter to you? And I wonder, Victoria, if we could come to you first.
Yeah, we're the coldest, so that's why you've started with us in Northern Ireland. Everyone else has a fan provided, but we don't need it. So yeah, I'm Victoria Gordon, and I have the lovely privilege of heading up a team within Temple Spa as an organisation. First and foremost, I'm a mom to three gorgeous little girls, Hayley Joy, Sienna Grace and Brianna Hope. They're all under the age of 10, so life is full for me and my hubby. But yeah, and in terms of leadership, for me, yes, Temple Spa is a huge part of what I do. I'm also involved in mentoring young business leaders, so people who are launching new businesses. I just draw alongside them just to encourage them and champion them and move them on with that. And then I've also been involved in various roles within leadership, both within the church and also within conference organising and event planning. So lots of leadership stuff. And I kind of joke now because I see my little ones and I think they're definitely going to be leaders. This is the hard bit, to nurture them at this age, isn't it? It's like little 3-year-old who's like a full-on leader in the making. It's like, let me just channel that. But I think it's just so important that we have people within leadership who it's not about them. I think we live in an age where we're very self-focused and everything is about self. If we look on Instagram, it's about everything's about everybody and these perfect lives. And I think it's very easy for especially people coming behind us, younger leaders, that they can be derailed by things like that. So I think it's really important that we can kind of model leadership in its truest form. We can champion the next generation and champion each other. So that's a huge thing for me within leadership, I guess, just to really bring along different people and just to pull out people's potential, because sometimes it's in there and it's only that one spoken word, just like Ruth was saying earlier. It's that one thing that can actually just trigger that and allow them to step into what God has called them to be.
Amazing. Thanks, Victoria. And yeah, Ruth, I wonder if you'd be willing to introduce yourself, explain your leadership context, but why does business leading matter to you as well?
Well, I'm I operate a portfolio of work at the moment. I used to be in economic development and marketing, public affairs, stakeholder management, customer relationship management. And for the last 10 years, or 15 years actually it is, I've run my own consultancy business where I've worked as a mentor and coach for people, helping them in their marketplace, usually in the marketplace or in charities. I'm really interested in how you develop leaders, particularly young leaders. I'm also, I really like governance. Not many people do, but I like governance. And so I'm a non-executive director of a number of charities. And I've done a whole variety of things from independent schools to currently I work with Bethany Christian Trust, and we're trying to end homelessness one person at a time. And so I work with that, and also with a public leaders program that Evangelical Alliance run, trying to encourage young people in their 20s and 30s to be really great leaders in the public square and in the marketplace. And I've also got a little pastoral role in my own church for workers, for people who are workers. It's a kind of new pioneering kind of role to try and look at how we can encourage young or workers of all ages, in fact. And that's been really interesting because you discover different needs and leadership needs. I am really convicted about leading in the marketplace, and that's important. I think if you're a leader in the marketplace, you have a huge impact on society because you impact the economy. And so you can do, it's not about what's the money that you're giving to the church as a Christian, but it's actually what is the difference that you're making where you are. And that's why I think it's really important, and really how do you develop leadership? And I think there needs to be more recognition of that, especially in the church.
Yeah, really good, Ruth. Yeah, thank you. And Oge.
Hi, I'm Oge Austin Chiku. So I wear a number of hats myself. I am a GP. I have been a doctor for more than 30 years. I used to be a senior partner of my practice before I left. I am director of a couple of companies. One is the property investment company, and the other one is my coaching company. So I do leadership and executive coaching. I really love to come alongside leaders, particularly women, but not just women, but to come alongside leaders and just help them in their leadership journey. I'm particularly drawn to women just because I think that one of the things that stops women from leading well is confidence in their ability and in what they have. And so I really do love to come alongside women and help them develop the confidence to sit at the table. And finally, I also started Kyria Network, which is a network that really champions Black and ethnic minorities and helps them to lead well, lead authentically, but also to help organizations to understand what the challenges are for Black and ethnic minority leaders. So why is business leadership important? I think it's really an opportunity to live out God's kingdom principles in a place, in an environment where some of the people there may never darken the doors of a church. So it gives us the opportunity as business leaders to shape an environment in the way that God would want it shaped. So almost to give God a voice in that space. So, and I think it's also important in terms of economies that businesses are profitable. And in order for business to be profitable, then it has to be led well. So it's really important that I see businesses being profitable, not just so that they can fund the church, but that is important as well, because the church does need to be funded, but not just that, but also to see people able to provide for their families and to really make a mark with their businesses. So that's why it's important to me.
Really good. Thank you, everyone.
So, okay, let's start with the first question for you. We're dropping you right in at the deep end. What would you say are the most important skills and characteristics for leaders in all spheres, but especially in business to hold?
That's I think that's a difficult question. And I'll say why I think it's a difficult question, because there are so many characteristics and traits that business people can have. And it's not a case of you have to have one thing, otherwise you can't make it as a business owner. But I do want to separate the characteristics from the skills, because the characteristics are almost like non-negotiable. They're who you are, they're what you bring. The skills can be learned. And even if you can't learn them, you can hire somebody who's got the skills. So although they're important, they're not as key as the characteristics. So one of the first things I would say would be focus. you need to be a focused person, because in order to achieve your bottom line and make sure that you're keeping on top of your key performance indicators, you do have to be focused. There are lots of things that can take your focus away from what you're doing. And so you need to be a focused person. I think you also need to be quite a decisive person. There are lots of decisions that one has to make when you're leading in the business field. And some of those decisions have to be made quite quickly and can have huge ramifications. So you have to be quite a decisive person and own your decisions, even if later on you think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. At least take responsibility for those decisions. Resourcefulness, and that goes with being innovative. So there's a lot of having to, find out how to make things work when things are not working, problem solving, all that goes with being resourceful and knowing how to make the most of what you've got instead of always waiting until you've got more. So that's really important. I think it's also important to be a person of integrity.
Yeah.
If we're going to lead in the business field where many people watching us may not be Christians, then we must lead with integrity, because we may be the only Jesus that they see. So that has to be important to us. And even more important than making money is that we have to be people of integrity. And finally, I think it's important to have a curious or a questioning kind of nature, where you're always learning and always looking to see, how can I do this better? How can I do this differently? And never to get to the point where you say, okay, been there, done that, no more to learn. In terms of skills, it's the usual things, the business skills, knowing a little bit about profit and loss. I mean, that's basic. Things like social media, having a knowledge of that, having a knowledge of business principles. Those are all skills that you can learn. Communication, because you're going to be working with people, managing people and handling conflict, which are things that leaders have to deal with in any sphere of leadership, but maybe more so in business leadership. But like I said, those are skills that can be learned. And even if you're not very good at it now, recognizing, being aware that this is something I need to, get a grip on, and then learning how to be better at it. And if the worst comes to the worst, you can hire somebody to manage people for you if you need to. So I think that's, in a nutshell, what I would say were the important characteristics and skills for a business leader to have.
Lovely, thank you.
Amazing, thank you. I just feel like we should just play that all over again, because there's so much wisdom in there. So thank you again for kicking it off so well. Ruth, I just wonder if you could share with us your thoughts. Why do you think that business leadership actually matters to God? And especially in the church, how can the church advocate and support this sphere of leadership better?
Well, first I think God put woman and man into the garden to cultivate it, and cultivating is about taking the seeds and the things that are there and making something more of it. And that's what I think business is taking something and making something more of it, and lots of work is that, actually. And so I think that is our equivalent of growing and cultivating. So I think leadership is important. I've probably said that before, but I feel it's really important, because you're able to do so much good in business and really impact in society. So I think leadership is really important, because you set the tone. You were talking about that, Ogie. It's really, you're setting the tone, you're setting the culture, you're setting the direction of the business. So it's actually quite a kind of powerful position. So it's important to have that really well, to do that with integrity, to do that with discretion, to do that with wisdom, to do that without greed, but to do that with focus. So you're looking to do well with your resources. I think also what you do when you lead a business, it affects those you employ, a huge impact on those you employ, not just because you're giving them a wage, and you have to think of, when you're running a company, who else is involved, because that's who you're looking after, is those that you employ. It's not just your own salary you're getting, it's that. But also you really impact the other people you work with, kind of employ suppliers. That's really significant. I think leadership affects the whole environment you're in. So there's so much that is involved at the moment in, the government has a lot of things that you've got to do to prove that you're doing things well, like energy efficiency and so on. Well, I think you should look to be the best in those things, so as you really are a bit of a standout, and so as people can see something that's significant. And I think God puts people in all sorts of businesses, and you have all sorts of opportunities to impact. So that's why I think business leadership matters to God, because He seeds us into lots of places. What about how the church can help business leaders. So I feel kind of really strongly about that, because the first thing I would say is we are the church. So it's, we kind of say what's the church can do as if we're pointing a finger. And I think that's about us. And I think a lot about creating a culture of asking people, how are things at work? How is it going? How's your business doing? Not from a point of view of being nosy, but actually saying, that's great. Can I be praying for you this week? I think these are really significant people. And I think once you do that, you start giving evidence that their work is important. I think you need to encourage pastors to do that, or ministers, vicars, whatever, to be able to, to help the institution ask some of those kind of questions as well. Then their illustrations can be much more pertinent because they know what are actually issues going on. But also they're showing people that it's of real value what they do. And I think that is desperately important, that people see that what they're doing, what they do when they're not in the church meeting formal, is utterly significant. And I say that in our church, God has seeded us all around Glasgow and beyond, you know, what is it that God has called us as a church to do.
Wow. So good.
So Victoria, how do we ensure that our business and entrepreneurial work remains rooted in integrity and good principles and values?
I love that already both ladies have mentioned integrity as a really fundamental core to our business. And I think probably, especially in today's society where, you know, we're all in a lane, we each have been called, I love how Ruth said it, you know, we each, if you want to put it, are little seedlings that are put out, and literally it's just flourishing where we're planted. And I just really feel that the whole value and integrity, that is what we build the foundation of a strong business on. If you can build a business with integrity and with really pure values, you know, I think about my business that I've been in now for nearly 17 years. And one of the biggest things that everyone hears me talking about is placing value on our customers, placing value on our team. All of those things are vitally important, because I find that when you place value, people flourish. And I really believe that actually within business, it's very, very easy to be in a more. That's all we see when we go into anything. It's more. And actually the reality is that people just want to be valued. People just want to actually have other people place value on them. But more importantly, see people as Jesus sees them. And for me, integrity and all of those values and all of that, that comes from the core of our relationship with God. And again, that's where I feel as a businesswoman, boundaries are really important. Yeah. And if we don't boundary our time with God, we actually find that the outpouring of our everyday, the outpouring of our business, where we might have started a business with integrity and good values and all of those things, become watered down whenever we're not going to the source for what we need every day. So for me, I guess probably one of the biggest things is boundary. It's creating those boundaries so that we have that time with God. He's the best business partner we'll ever have in the world, you know, and I just think that's where everything will flow from. That's where it will flow. It won't mean that it'll be easy, but that's where it'll flow. And sometimes choosing values and integrity, I guess this is something that I say to a lot of people in business. It sometimes means that you might have to take the long way around, because actually sacrifice and integrity sometimes can mean that you can progress very fast within your business. But actually, I always say to people, I go with my gut. I go with what my values are. I go with what is rooted deep down in there. And for me, it's better to build a business with strong, steady foundations than to actually compromise integrity or any of those principal values. Because I think if your foundations are strong, it'll withstand a lot of storms.
Amazing. Thanks, Victoria. Wow. Well, if you're all joining us this evening, or you've just tuned into this live, we're already having such a brilliant conversation about what it looks like to lead in the business sphere as Christian women. Just an encouragement again, we have 10 more minutes left of this live. If you had a particular question that you wanted to direct to Victoria or Oge or Ruth, if you follow this chat, you will see a Zoom link. You can just jump on now and you'll be kept in the waiting room. And then at 8:30, when we conclude this live, there'll just be an opportunity for us to share in a confidential, more private Q&A. So if you're watching right now and you're thinking, I'm loving this so far, which I am, like, I wish I was taking more notes than I am. I'm trying to take a few here and there. not only can you watch it back, but you can grab another live moment with those of us that are contributing this evening. So again, just an encouragement, and do populate the chat. Say what you think has meant something to you right now. I'm already seeing Sarah, the great comment that you're putting there is a minister in training, etc. So let's carry on though. This is a question once again for all, and I'm wondering if we could start with you actually, Oge. You know, the Bible's full of some incredible examples of men and women that lead well, aren't they? But I wonder for you, what are some of the biblical examples that help and encourage us when it comes to women in business, Oge?
For me, the first place would be Proverbs 31. I know that there is the idea that this is a metaphorical woman and not a real woman, and that it's impossible to be all that she was, but I think it is something that we can always aim towards. And because I love property, the fact that she saw a field and bought it, that always speaks to me. And it doesn't say that she consulted with any of the townsmen. She saw a field and she bought it. But the second person in the Bible is actually not mentioned very much. She's only mentioned once in the Old Testament, in 1 Chronicles 7, verse 24. And this is a woman that was called Shira. Now, the circumstances to which she was born were not easy circumstances, and I'll let you read the story. But the Bible says that she built 3 cities. Now, I don't know about any of you if you've ever built a house, let alone a city. Let alone a city or 3 at a time when you were a woman. And not only were you a woman, there is evidence to suggest that she was she might have been half Egyptian, because she was born to as a daughter of Ephraim, who was born to Joseph in Egypt. So she was an ethnic minority. So she had all these things that were against her, but she built 3 cities. And one of those cities, the ruins are still, you can still see them if you went to Israel. So that encourages me. I don't know what she must have gone through to do that, but she must have been an amazing woman who kept going in spite of all the difficulty. And as you can see, I love her so much that we've named our network, Shira Network, after her.
So good. And I would encourage you to check out that network. At the end of this live, we are going to be popping up the links for a lot of these organisations, but particularly Shira Network, which already has such strong value within its namesake. So yeah, do check that out. And Victoria, could we come next to you about what your biblical examples would be that encourage us?
So when this came through, I was like straight on to the Proverbs 31, because isn't that what we all love? It's like, yeah, come on, girl. Do you know? But actually it was interesting, because as I prayed about it, God took me to and reminded me of 2 incredible midwives, believe it or not, in Exodus, Shiphrah and Puah, should I say. And I just think these must have been the sassiest, strongest women ever. I don't know if you're familiar with the story, but in Exodus 1, we read of these 2 midwives who basically feared God. And they made a decision ultimately that would save many, many lives. And, you know, go read it. It's in Exodus 1, 17 to 20. But they feared God more than Pharaoh. Now, there is a bit of debate around whether they should have lied or what all of that. But I want you to go and actually read this, because these women were up against a hard choice in their workplace. And they basically went ahead and went with their gut. They went with actually what they sensed was right to do. So in terms of all the babies, they were basically instructed to kill any male baby that was born. And they didn't do that. So they allowed, obviously, those male babies to continue to live their lives, and all sorts happened as a result of that. But I was reminded again when I read this that God has placed us in different places throughout the world, within our workplaces. You know, I thought of these 2 midwives and I just thought, wow, you know, some days we're faced with decisions, thankfully not to the degree of this, but he has called us and he has placed us to be a voice, to give hope. And those women were willing to risk it. And I think sometimes we live quite comfortably, especially even within the business. You know, if you look in terms of your business and where you're placed within the workplace. And I guess I want to challenge each of us, you know, what does that mean in terms of what God has called us to be and where he has placed us. He has placed each of us for a reason where we are. So they were willing to risk that. They were faithful. They didn't need an audience. They didn't include anybody else in this. They didn't need an audience to admire their good deeds. They just did what was right in that moment because they were living for the audience of one. So I guess for us, each day brings us opportunities to do small things that will impact those around us. So for me, those two women really impacted me as I continued and reminded myself of that story again. Just those small actions. That was quite a big action that they did. But if we think about our everyday, those small actions that we do that make a difference.
Thanks, Victoria. And Ruth?
So I was thinking of two people. One you don't really view as a leader, and she was a servant in Naaman's household to Naaman's wife. But what she did was she led her from a lowly position. She took a little bit of leadership, and the only way that she did that was Naaman, you probably know the story, and Naaman had leprosy and he was going to be exposed, and she just asked a question: why doesn't my master go to see Elijah the prophet? And it's like, she doesn't say you must go or do any of these things. She just pops a question in. And as the result of that, Naaman does go. Naaman does get healed, and the nations become friends. And it's quite a significant thing happens out of a very small part and a small question. And I think never underestimate what you do and the questions you might ask. I'm a big question asker. And so I love that story because she asks questions. So don't be afraid of asking questions. You don't know what God will do with it. We don't know what happened to her, but I wonder if she was seen to be somebody who began her journey of growth. That would be fanciful, I guess, but it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
The other person, Lydia, is the obvious one to go to, but what I love about Lydia is that she comes to love Jesus and she opens her house, but her house is more than a house, it's her workplace, and that's a place where meetings happen, where people come in. She serves people, she uses her resources. It's often where the church is meeting. She has a gift of hospitality that goes alongside her gift of business, so she uses all that she is. And I think sometimes we divide our lives up. And what I love about her is her whole life discipleship. Everything is part of that. And I think that's a gift that often women can bring, because you have, and I don't want to generalize inappropriately, but you often have a place in your household, don't you, that allows and enables you to do some things that you might not otherwise. I always think there was a moment where I was trying to run a business meeting and my children were crawling across the table. And I'm thinking, I know my husband couldn't have done that, but I could. But there's something about, because you have that space and you're used to being comfortable in that space, people can come in and you can do a lot of work out of that. And so that's why I love Lydia.
Oh yeah. And do you know what, can I just chuck one in as well? I love all these examples that everybody's given so far, but I'm always really astounded and curious of Joanna and Susanna, those faithful business women leaders. And it records in Luke 8 how out of their influential business positions, they actually use their own resources, their own finances to fund Jesus' mission and ministry. And I love the fact that, of course, Jesus is such a strong advocate for us as women leaders, but we see here these beautiful, strong women leaders within their business sphere, taking all that they have and pouring that out as a love offering to Jesus. So yeah, I just love that. Yeah, back to you, Angie.
Okay, so just to round up before we finish, what would you say to anybody that's watching tonight? Just give us some tips and encouragement for those women that maybe they're exploring the potential of starting a business, or whether they're actually involved in business leading. What would you say to them tonight? So, okay, do you want to start?
I would say that the marketplace is an exciting place where we can live out God's kingdom principles and see God really work. I have so many testimonies of what God has done, what he can do. So yes, it's hard, can be difficult, but it's also exciting and so rewarding. And also to say that as long as you remember that God is your senior partner, you can expect more than you could ever dream possible, ever imagine was possible, because he goes over and beyond. So go for it. And remember that you've got a senior partner who is the greatest, the best. How could you not do well?
That's great. Thank you. Victoria, what would you say?
Well, yes, and amen to all of that, which is brilliant. But for me, it would be find a good mentor, find someone who has got your corner, someone who you can press into with stuff. Not every dream that God gives you is to share with everybody. I guess that's probably the biggest advice I want to give people, because the tendency is when you've got that stirring within you, even within a business, it's like you want to tell everybody, but actually protect that, because that's from God, and he'll bring you the right people to surround you in terms of that and help bring you through with that. So find a good mentor, people who have your corner, a really safe place to press into those God-given dreams and to be encouraged. And just like OJ said, just go for it. There is lots in there and in you, and just go for it. Take the risk, like those Hebrew women, take the risk.
Fabulous. Thanks a lot, Victoria. What about you, Ruth?
So I would say use Colossians 3:23 as your mantra. And it says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters.
Yeah.
So when things are absolutely brilliant, remember it's the Lord Christ you're serving.
Yeah.
When things are absolutely rubbish, when you feel redundancy, when you feel all sorts of things, remember it's the Lord Christ you're serving. And it helps you get things really in perspective. So I think that's really important. And I also think it is thinking, how does Jesus view the people who are in front of you? And I think one of the privileges you have is you have people there. You can pray for them. You might be the only person who prays for them. So you need to be interested in people and not to use them, but be genuinely interested in them, because that way you can pray intelligently for them, you can speak into their lives, and God gives you wisdom to do that. And that's one of the real privileges of leadership.
Yeah.
Fabulous. I think I would just say as well is that don't wait until you're ready. If you're watching tonight and you're thinking about starting a business, don't wait until you think that you're 100% ready, because you'll have skills and gifts that are in you that are dormant, that God is wanting to awaken in order for you to fulfill the call that he's put on your life to start a business. And so there is a whole supernatural element of it as well that I found, like as you said, Vic, about, you know, he's your business partner, or was it you, Oge? You know, and when you do business with God and he's your business partner, there's a whole supernatural element that takes place as well, and he'll bring you to that place where you'll have the skills.
That's great, Angie. Well, do you know what? Time flies when you're being inspired. Gosh, I want to watch back this conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and the wisdom that's come from all of you. Angie, as you facilitated this conversation with myself, Victoria, Ruth, okay, thank you. So this is your last shout, ladies. If you would like to join the Zoom room now, you need to press that Zoom link now. So it will just be 15 minutes Q&A. You might have a question again to put to one of our contributors this evening. If you're looking for that Zoom link, just click into the conversation that's happening on this live feed. If you join now, you'll just be sat in the waiting room for, I promise you, 30 seconds just as we close off that live, and then we'll come together. But I just feel a nudge to say, if maybe you are thinking that you've got a bit of a burning question, if there's a fear, if there's a feeling of you wanting to start something and you wanting to step into the marketplace more, but you just think, gosh, where do I start? And maybe that little Zoom opportunity now just feels that bit too vulnerable, that it feels that bit too much. I would encourage you to write into us. We want to offer support. That's what we're all about. We're here to champion you. We're here to empower you and release you. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of all of us that we would all be willing to field a question or field a prayer request offline. I really feel compelled that some of you are watching right now or might be watching back that just think that's a bit too much of a stretch. If that's you, I want to encourage you just either write into our Facebook, write into our Instagram, or write to info@kyrianetwork.com. Direct your question to one of us, all of us, and I'm sure we'd be more than happy to pray for you or encourage you. But thank you for watching, friends. If you're watching this at a later date, again, that offer there remains for you as well. Oge, we're grateful for your time. Ruth, Victoria too. And Angie, it's been a blast, hasn't it? We love these chats.
Really, it's been fantastic. I've loved it.
Yeah, good stuff. So I'm going to stop this live now. One more chance, ladies. Jump on that Zoom link now if you want to. And we'll see you again next month as we meet together. And next month's Leadership Sphere is all about media. So if you're interested in that, you know some women that are in that sphere or wanting to be part of that sphere, join in. So God bless everyone and thanks for joining us. Goodbye.